mixtures of minerals, different amounts of each one. So if you were to grow tomatoes in every square foot, that's about 100 square miles because this picture is taken from 100 miles up. When you grow tomatoes in every square foot of that 100 square miles down there, could you guarantee, without supplementation, that each tomato is going to give you the exact same amount and variety of minerals? No. I mean, you don't have to know anything, but you just look at that picture, you know it's not the same. Well, in the animal industry, we know that. And so in the animal industry, we put everything we know that dog and the cat and the chicken and the sheep and the pig and the horse and turkey and duck, everything that we're feeding with pellets and mixtures of grains, we put everything we know they need in it. When you look at a label on the back of a can of dog food or a bag of dog food or a bag of chicken food or pig feed, guess what? The only thing that shows up on that label is what we put in there. Because if they were to analyze each batch, guess what? That can of dog food costs you $500. The only thing that label represents is what we put in there. Everything else is naturally in there. We consider that value added. And see, every morning when you wake up, it's the grace of God you woke up, because the night before when you ate dinner, if you didn't supplement with the 90 essential nutrients, you don't know if you're going to die that night by missing one of those. That's how critical it is. Eating organic doesn't matter. Organic says less pollutants. Doesn't say anything about the nutritional value of the food. They looked at 240 separate studies where they looked at the amount of nutrition, minerals, and vitamins in organically grown versus inorganically grown grains and vegetables and fruit. And guess what? It depends on what row in the field they're growing in. Organic doesn't mean good nutrition necessarily. You still have to supplement. That's why vegans and vegetarians die long before meat eaters. Let me tell you, the top 20 longevity cultures on earth, there's not a single vegetarian in the group. They're all meat eaters. They don't fry anything. It's too expensive to buy the oils. They're poor. Now, this is the core of everything we do. We have 100 cubic miles of this stuff. This is a compost that has 77 minerals in it. It is totally pollutant-free. It's the only place in America that's totally pollutant-free. Now, that's because the road that these guys are standing on at 3,000-foot elevation, so if the water would raise from the underground aquifers, the underground rivers would bring pollutants into this stuff, it'd be the second flood. Okay, it'd be bad. It'd be like 2/3 of a mile deep. Also, this cap up here is 25 feet of marine limestone. We know that because the animal and plant fossils that are in there are from the oceans. So we know this has been under the oceans for thousands and thousands of years. Was this from the flood? I don't know. But certainly it's been protected, has 77 minerals in it. It looks like coffee grounds when you take a handful of it. And this is where we get our minerals. This is the core of everything we do. Nobody else has access to this. We have 25 different ways to get the 90 essential nutrients. One of the more convenient ones we call the Healthy Start Pack. It has 3 products in it. It has 245 nutrients in it, including 115 fruits and vegetable juices. 115. This is not V8. This is V115. It has all 90 essential nutrients in optimal amounts. This is designed for perfect nutrition for 100 pounds of human flesh for a month. So if you give this to a 50-pound kid or a 50-pound midget from Spain, it doesn't matter. 50 pounds goes by body weight. This will be good for 2 months. If you give it to a 100-pound person, give or take 10 pounds, that's a month. If you give it to a 200-pound person, give or take 10 pounds, that's for 2 weeks. If you give it to a 300-pound person, give or take 10 pounds or 20 pounds, this is good for 10 days. You have to do it by body weight to get optimal results, okay? I've been doing this twice a day since I was 9 years old. There's a big story to that. You'll find it in the book, Dead Doctors Don't Lie, or the CD, Dead Doctors Don't Lie. Okay, my wife and I took 10 years, and we read every one of the 720 issues of the National Geographic that were published over a 60-year period. We found the top 20 longevity cultures on Earth. They have 25 common threads. We put all this information in this book, and I found it very interesting. Invariably, the top 20 longevity cultures, they were all extremely religious cultures that went to church every Sunday. There's not a pagan bunch in the top 20. I thought that was really good stuff. So anyway, there's a whole chapter on that, the religious beliefs and how it helps you reach 100. At any rate, we put the top 5 of these 25 common threads these people have. First of all, they have 5 generations living in the same household. Conservation of effort. They only have 1 mortgage for 5 generations instead of 5 mortgages. They have no need for hospice. They have no need for daycare. They have no need for education. Great-great-grandma teaches the girls everything they need to know, and great-great-grandpa teaches the guys everything they need to know. So they have no tax burden, right? They have no doctors. They have no hospitals or clinics. They have no pharmacies or pharmaceuticals. They have no medicines. Great-great-grandma is the medicine woman, the wise woman, who treats everybody with herbs and plasters and soaks them in mud and mineral water and whatever she does, right? In every case. There's not a single doctor in any of these places, top 20 longevity cultures. There's not a single first world culture. There's not a single rich nation in the top 20 longevity cultures. You have to take note of this. This is from the National Geographic. They don't have any utilities, no roads, no electricity, no propane, no natural gas. Their common fuel is wood. Uh-oh. And by dumb luck, by actual analysis of the soil, by the universities and the countries these cultures come from, to get the wood they burn for fuel, take the wood ashes from that wood and put in their gardens, they have all 60 essential minerals in it, by actual dumb luck. See, it's not genetic, it's just dumb luck. They all get the 90 essential nutrients, even though they're from different ecosystems. We show you how they do that. They come from islands and rainforests and deserts and grassy plains. They come from mountainsides. They come from all kinds of places, but yet they all get the 90 essential nutrients, including the 60 essential minerals from their wood ashes. They have other sources, like glacial milk. It's a runoff from glaciers that grind up the rocks and things. But they also put their wood ashes, and the wood they burn for fuel grows on land that has more than 60 minerals in it. They all live on a calorie-restricted diet. How many of you know that calorie restriction will add years to your life? There is a science that came out in the 1400s. The first guy that wrote a book on it called The Art of Living Long was Luigi Carnero. There's a whole chapter devoted to him in the calorie-restricted diet thing. I'll give you an example real quick. This works in every species of animal and humans, okay? No doubt about it. Let's take a 3-pound male laboratory rat, and let's say he eats 2 ounces a day of Ralston Purina laboratory rat pellets. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take, let's say he'll live 6 years on that diet. If you do nothing to him, you just feed him, he'll live 6 years. But if I take the nutrition, the vitamins and minerals that's in those 2 ounces of those laboratory rat pellets, put them in 1 ounce, I've cut the calories in half, but I've doubled the nutrition per mouthful. That rat will live to be 12 years of age. Monkeys do it, sheep do it, pigs do it, dogs do it, humans do it. He wrote his first book called The Art of Living Long. Okay, he'd lived to be 103 when the doctor said he wouldn't see his 33rd birthday. He was 32 years old. And he did it with a calorie-restricted diet and eating more wood ashes. Now, these people don't get any bad stuff. They don't eat fried foods. They don't get any processed meats with nitrates and nitrites. They don't drink any carbonated drinks. Not because they wouldn't if that stuff was there, but who's going to build drive-thrus to sell that kind of thing? There's no roads, no cars. I mean, why would you build drive-thrus for a bunch of guys on burros? It ain't going to work. Okay, so by default, they're getting their wood ashes or minerals, and by default, they're poor. They only can afford 900 calories a day. These people on the average take in 900 calories a day. Americans, according to the New England Centenarian Study, which comes out every year by Harvard Medical School, they say Americans take in 2,800 to 3,200 calories every day. These people take in an average of 900. It's not because they know low calories is good for them. It's because they're just poor. They can only afford that. Their gardens are as big as this table here. They're postage stamp gardens. Now, they do get 20 times to 50 times the antioxidants we do as actually measured by ORAC points. ORAC is an acronym or abbreviation for oxygen radical absorption capacity. It tells you how many free radicals are neutralized by the antioxidants in a food. This is where the super juices came from. Mangosteen, goji, acai berry, pomegranate juice, Patagonian wild blueberries, New Zealand black currants, and all these exotic juices. They're very, very good. They have high antioxidants, but they're only 1/25 to the recipe. Americans take in 1,500 ORAC points, 1,500. According to Harvard Medical School, these people take in 20,000 to 50,000. Personally, I take in 100,000 every day. I kind of hit it hard. Now, this was the last National Geographic I read. Oh, yeah, it's May of 2013. Look at that. This baby will live to be 120. And when you read it, and you read my book, Immortality, you'll see that they read Immortality because every point they make is taken chapter by chapter. And I love it. It's great. Because in the Western Hemisphere, the longest-lived people in the Western Hemisphere are the Nicoyans from the Nicoyan Peninsula in Costa Rica, Central America. They live out in the forest. They're uneducated. Their average lifespan is 90. They have 40 times 100-year-olds we do. They have 100-year-old per 250 of their population. We have 100-year-old per 10,000. They have 40 times 100-year-olds. They don't have doctors. They don't have clinics. They don't have hospitals. No private or government insurance. They have grandma and great-grandma and great-great-grandma. That's what they got. And they have, by dumb luck, minerals that they're taking their wood ashes and putting in their gardens. Now, this child from Central America is not from black Africa, not from white Europe, or not from yellow Asia. This baby is kind of an Indian from Central America. And these people live to be 90. And when they wrote this article, it's just beautiful because the last couple of paragraphs they say, well, is drop dead predictable as gravity? These kids will live to be 120. They're just living longer and longer and longer. They're already living now to be 100, 105. They're going to live to be 120. And We can't tell if it's genetics or dumb luck. It's dumb luck because they chose to live there thousands of years ago. So they couldn't find the gene because there ain't none, as they say. Okay, let's look at billionaires. If money meant something for health and longevity, billionaires should be, as a group, they should percentage-wise, not numbers obviously, but percentage-wise, they should have the highest average lifespan compared to any other demographic in America, and they should have more 100-year-olds. If money and power and knowing how to get things would help you. I'd asked him that for many, many years, and I actually had a CD that I came out with, What Kills Billionaires. Look what they called their article, because I kept telling them and calling them and calling them. And they said, no. Well, in 2004, they did their own survey. They found that billionaires are killed by the same unglamorous things that kill everybody else. Heart attack, stroke, diabetes, obesity, cancer, suicide. Because they eat the same stupid things we do. In 2004, there had never been a billionaire that lived to be 100. The average lifespan is 78. The average lifespan of a falling down red wine drunk in Charlotte, North Carolina, living under the bridge is 75. They dumpster dive in the dumpsters behind McDonald's and live under the bridge, and they live to be 75. Many of them live to be 100. That's because they don't go to doctors and get killed. Well, the billionaires didn't like that report, and so they said, look, we want you to redo that. So Forbes magazine did it again 7 years later. They redid it, and it came out in March of 2011. Remember, the first one was 2004. They said, as of March of 2011, there's still not been a billionaire that lived to be 100. All the statistics from all the things they looked at in 2004 were exactly the same statistically, except one. One of these subjects was dramatically different, and that was the average lifespan. One did change dramatically. It was lifespan. In 2004, it was 78. In 2011, 66. It dropped 12 years. That's statistically impossible. In 7 years to drop 12 years, ain't happening. Okay, that was driven. I mean, I could see them losing a week. I could see them losing a month or something like that. But in 7 years' time, they're not going to lose 12 years. How did that happen? So I treat a lot of billionaires. They come to me with terminal diseases. They're told they're inoperable, have less than a year to live, less than 6 months to live. And I cure them. And so I have this big entourage of billionaires who follow what we do. They love the 90 for life. They got their whole families on it and so on. So I call them up and they say, look, I need 10 of you to ask 10 or 15 or 20 of your billionaire buddies in your country clubs one question for me. Oh, yeah, well, Wallach, anything. So I want you to ask them if they've done anything proactive, if they've done anything different since that first report came out from Forbes in 2004 that said none of them lived to be 100, they only lived to be an average of 78. Did they do anything special? Call me back a week later and said, well, that was very perceptible. I'm like, yeah. On the average, every billionaire spent $500,000, $500,000 building fitness centers in their house and their workplaces and their offices, and they got these computers that were voice activated so they could be rowing for 3 hours and giving instructions for their businesses and listening to reports and everything from this computer. Exercise is the most dangerous thing you can voluntarily get involved with if you do it incorrectly. It will kill more people than anything else. Now I'm going to tell you more details in a minute, so bear with me. You got to do a little bit more before I get to that piece, so just remember that. Exercise is dangerous. Steve Jobs died 10 years before the average billionaire. Smart, no doubt about that. Lots of money, no doubt about that. But he was an unsupplemented vegan. He hired a 5-star vegan chef to cook everything from him. They spent lots of money, flew in organic food from everywhere. They stir-fried it in organic, extra, virgin olive oil and coconut oil. And then when he got his pancreatic cancer, which is predictable, because of all those heterocyclamines and acrylamides and trans fatty acids from the heated oils, he went to the most well-respected, most highly regarded, most published, and most funded cancer research doctor in America. Bam! He was dead. He died as sure as that doctor shot him in the head. He should have gone to Costa Rica and find the oldest person there and say, I want you to feed me like you're eating. Here's some extra money. Give me what you're eating. And he'd still be alive today. Exercise. Exercise is a very, very dangerous enterprise. The average lifespan, when you take all professional athletes together, all sports, you add them together, the average lifespan of a professional athlete is 62. You take the average lifespan of a professional football player, when you take out all the suicides, is 51. There has never been, with the exception of 3 black guys from the old Negro Baseball League days back in the 1920s, there has never been a professional athlete ever lived to be 100. If exercise is so good, how come they don't live to be 100? They get paid. Their only job is to stay healthy. That's their only job. When they get paid $3 million a game, their whole responsibility is to eat right, supplement right, exercise right, sleep, avoid all the bad stuff, That's all they're getting paid for, is to stay healthy and perform. They have whole seasons off and they still get paid every month. It's wild when you think about it. And their average lifespan is 62, and none of them live to be 100. Well, why is that? That's because when you exercise, you sweat, don't you? And people love you, and you're sweating in your job. You're working in a factory. It's 120 degrees in the factory. You're throwing bales of hay. Whatever your work is, you're roofing in the summertime, that kind of stuff. They tell you to take plenty of what? That's what kills you. Because, here's why. That's the obvious question. Why? Because sweat is not water. Sweat is a soup that contains all the nutrients in your blood. Let's say you're eating 65, 72 nutrients. You haven't quite gotten to the 90 yet. The same principle is true for 90, but the average person isn't taking the 90 yet. So let's say they're getting 65 to 72 nutrients in their food, and they're sweating out 65 to 72 nutrients. So here you are. Let's say this is your nutritional reserves in your body, and you're sweating, and you're drinking water. What's happening to your nutritional reserves? That's kind of like replacing a quart of oil every time your engine burns a quart of oil with a quart of water. How much do you do that? By the 6th week, your engine wouldn't be very happy, would it? So, now let's see here. You start getting breakdown your ACL ligament. You start getting a breakdown of your cartilage. You start getting muscle cramps. You start getting loose teeth, high blood pressure, diabetes. Start gaining some weight. Oh, now you got fibromyalgia. Now you got lupus. Now you have a heart attack, which you may or may not survive from. Shame on all the fitness guys. Actually, I have to tell you this quick story. I was called to Atlanta. Oh, this has got to be 12 years ago. And this was to an LA fitness center. The manager was one of our associates, one of our distributors. And he said, Doc, I got this whole new crop of people here. They've never heard of it. I want you to give a half-hour lecture just on the sports piece. Okay, it doesn't have to be the whole thing, just on the sports piece. Okay. So I get there, and there's a group about this size, a couple hundred people in there, and showing my slides on athletes. And this beautiful girl, she had to be 32 years old. I mean, she's drop-dead gorgeous. And she's in $1,000 silk tutu, and all this stuff. And she goes, oh, Dr. Wallach. And she stands up and she's facing the audience right in front of me. She said, oh, Dr. Wallach, it's not vitamins, minerals. It's aerobics and exercise. She goes, it's aerobic and exercise. It's aerobics and exercise. She goes, and half the people in there, 100 of them, were her customers, her clients. So they all get behind her and all conga dancing out. It's all exercise and aerobics. It's all exercise and aerobics. And it was the most disastrous meeting I've ever had in my life. I was mortified. Well, 3 weeks later, I started getting hundreds of calls from L.A. We need the stuff. We need your 90 essential nutrients. We need your sports drink, which we call Rebound, has 100 nutrients in it. Gatorade has 2. So you're 88 sharp with Gatorade. So anyway, I said, why am I getting all these calls from Atlanta, Georgia, wanting the stuff? Remember that gal that disrupted your meeting? Well, how could I forget? It's the worst meeting I ever had. Well, last week, 32 years old, she's on the treadmill at lunchtime, 1,000 people in there all watching her. She's doing her thing gorgeous. She drops dead of a heart attack right there. Bam! And everybody in that center called me and got on the stuff. It was a very expensive way, but, she advertised for me, so I love her. Now, the Journal of the American Medical Association, 1982. The Journal of the American Medical Association, 1982. While running, a man's risk of heart attack death increases by a factor of 700%. Because it's all honey. Be sure you drink plenty of water. You're out there sweating out your 60 to 70 nutrients. You're just replacing them with water. You're going to die. You're going to break down. You can't run an engine on 6 quarts of water when it should be 6 quarts of oil. It's that simple. This fellow here ran 100 marathons. Brian Maxwell is one of the top athletes in Canada. He was considered a fitness guru. Heart attack claims another fitness guru. Dies at 51 of a heart attack from, actually the heart attack he died from was a simple deficiency of a single mineral. I've actually done 1,700 autopsies on people that died of that one type of heart attack. I'm an expert at it, not because I'm bragging, it's just nobody else has done 1,700 autopsies on people that died of that thing. And so he actually ran 100 marathons, never came in less than 5th, had 14 gold medals. 3 in the Olympics, 11 were in the Ironman things, the World Games, and the triathlons. This guy was as fit as a human being could be, and he dies at 51 of a heart attack because he sweat out all his minerals. Just drank water. In his book, you read his book, Jim Fix, the first guy I showed you, that orange book. You look in the index under vitamins and minerals, it says, go to page 165. You go to page 165, it says, don't take vitamins and minerals. You get everything you need from your food. Just run, you'll live longer. And thousands and thousands and thousands and millions of people listen to him. Why would you follow somebody's advice who died at 51 and 52 doing what they're telling you to do? Now, if he lived to be 150, I'd do it, right? But died at 51, 52 is not a very good recommendation. This guy here collapsed during a playoff game. Reggie Lewis collapsed during a playoff game with the Charlotte Hornets back in 1993. 28 years old, captain of the Boston Celtics, good-looking young fella. Great captain. He never jumped in the stands and beat up the paying customers and stuff like that. He was a great field leader on the court, and he was a great man on the street. He's just a good man, 28 years old. And he collapses with a cardiomyopathy heart attack, a simple deficiency of a single mineral called selenium. And he didn't die. He was taken to the hospital, and they were able to keep him alive. So the Celtics got a team of 12 of the top cardiologists from around the world. And while they were arguing amongst themselves who's going to be the head cardiologist to determine whether he got a heart transplant or what they were going to do with him, and if they did a heart transplant, he'd be the first professional athlete to get back and play with a heart transplant. So they're kind of excited about that. He dies of his second cardiomyopathy heart attack 2 weeks later because nobody gave him 50 cents worth of selenium. Well, here comes the real story. This is the story that I want to get to, but I had to precede it with that story. The guy who was going to be the head of that dream team of cardiology, who was going to take care of Reggie Lewis, was a guy by the name of Dr. W. Thomas Nessa, who was the head of the cardiology department of Harvard Medical School. He ran the Boston Marathon 20 times himself. He was the cardiologist for the NBA. He was a cardiologist for the Celtics. He taught cardiology in the medical school, of course, but he also taught it at CME, continuing medical education stuff for doctors and nurses. And this guy was considered the cardiologist of all cardiologists. Well, a year and a half after Reggie died of that selenium deficiency, cardiomyopathy heart attack, Dr. Nessa dies of the same thing at age 48. Now, if I was his family, I'd be embarrassed to tears. Saying what a wonderful cardiologist is. He dies of a heart attack at age 48. He was dumb and dead. He was dumb and dead. This guy may have been able to take your heart out and not lose a drop of blood and put it into him. He may have been a good seamstress, but he didn't know anything about hearts. Because he died of a heart attack. And I thought it was kind of justice. He died in a town in Massachusetts called Dedham. I mean, that should be on his tombstone. Died in Dedham. Now, I don't have a doctor. I told you, I haven't been to a doctor in 65 years. The only piece of paper, the only piece of paper in my health record is one piece of paper. It's my birth certificate. There's nothing else in there. I'm 74 years old. Everybody in America would be the same way. Just think about it. Just think how humble the medical system would be if everybody in America were like me medically. Only go to a doctor once every 74 years. They'd be real humble, wouldn't they? Please, I'll pay you to come visit me. I don't want to be alone anymore. So let's say, just for theory, he was my cardiologist. He said, okay, Wallach, you're 74 years old now. You got to watch your blood pressure. I want you to give up salt. Well, if he said that to me, and I knew what his future was going to be, I would go around and I would get every salt shaker in Charlotte. I'd leave $1 so they didn't think I'm stealing them. I'd build a 2-foot frame around my bed, and I'd fill that frame, with Celtic salt, Celtic salt, Himalayan salt, sea salt, Morton salt, every kind of salt, pink salt, yellow salt, brown salt, everything you can think of. And I get naked every night, and I wiggle around until I'm sleeping in a cocoon of salt every night. If he said that eggs were bad for you because of cholesterol, I'd eat 25 a day. If he said that exercise was good for you, I'd lay on that bed of salt, eating my eggs, and I wouldn't even blink. Because I wouldn't want to be like him at age 48, dead. Now, following his advice, this is what happens. This is the gal here, Renelda Pierce, 19 years old, was chased by every professional women's basketball team in the world. She was 6'5", could do the Air Jordan thing. She was just a lovely girl. And she chose to say, look, I'm going to take 2 years of academics first. I'm going to go to Florida State. Make a long story short, halfway through her freshman year, she drops dead during a game at age 19 from a ruptured aneurysm, which is caused by a deficiency of a single mineral copper. She's drinking Gatorade. Go look and try and find any copper in Gatorade. There's no copper in Gatorade. There's no selenium in Gatorade. They killed that girl as sure as they shot her. And then they have the gall to say that she died of a genetic disease. She died of a simple copper deficiency. If she'd taken the 90s, she'd still be alive today. Wes Leonard, there was a sudden death playoff in western Michigan for a semifinal game. Make a long story short, he catches the tip-off. He runs across the court, slam dunks it. His team wins sudden death, 54-52. This is him just seconds after he makes those points. His teammates lift him up. 3 seconds after this picture was taken, he drops dead of a cardiomyopathy heart attack, age 16. Now, the medical examiner had a moment here. This is a national story. The medical examiner had a moment. They got his name spelled right. Medical examiner David Start said the stress Leonard placed on his heart through athletics could have played, notice these wiggle words, could have played a role, but his death could not be easily explained. It is explained. It's a deficiency of selenium caused by sweating and drinking water or Gatorade. Now, he had a chance to save every kid in America there, because everybody read that story. That man should go to jail forever, and when he dies, the natural cause of his body should be fed to a rabid dog. That's the meanest thing I can think of. What doctors want to do, as a result of Wes Leonard dying, let's do more EKGs. That's not going to do anything for a nutritional deficiency. It doesn't show up on an EKG. This girl, L.A., dropped dead of cardiomyopathy heart attack. She was a cheerleader. Girls sweat. They need the 90 essential nutrients too, especially if they're going to grow up and have babies. She died 16 years old. Somebody needs to go to jail. Make a long story short, we'll get on with the next couple of subjects. We'll move on to the diseases. Theo Ratliff just retired from the NBA, 14 years. His career was over 14 years ago. He had bone-to-bone arthritis in both knees, had cartilage pop off his hip. He caught a pass during a game, fractured his wrist. The orthopedic surgeons at the Atlanta Hawks wouldn't sign off on him, so his career was over. And we rebuilt him using our Healthy Bone and Joint Pack, and we actually made the Rebound sports drink for him. It has 100 nutrients in it, including selenium and copper and everything else you need. It has 100 nutrients in it, and he played for 14 more years after the orthopedic surgeon said that he wouldn't play. He made $140 million after they said his career was over. Now, do you think his wife, Christina, doesn't love me? Now, next to Theo, now she's 6'5" herself. So every time I go over there, she kind of hugs me around the head and pats on my head. She's so sweet. Rebound. You have somebody you love who's sweating, whether it's work or play or sports of any age, you give them Rebound. Don't give them Gatorade. You'll add 25 years to their life, and they won't drop dead. Who needs doctors? This came out February 2005, special health issue in a U.S. News World Report. Your future physician might not be a medical doctor. You may be better off. In 1993, I said the average medical doctor, which is done by looking at 200 obituaries of primary care physicians, adding up their age of death, divided by 200, got 58. Why would you go to a group of people whose average lifespan is 58 to learn how to live to be 120, as God commanded? Well, they didn't like that, so they did their own study. They said, well, Wallach lied. The average primary care physician, family doctor, doesn't live to be 58 like he says. We live to be 56. Why were they so eager to publish that? Well, that's because they were more interested in showing my statistics were incorrect than they did show that they were showing that they died 2 years earlier. So I will apologize for giving them too many years. I'm going to make a prediction here. Copper deficiency causes white hair and dry, yucky-looking skin. He's a classic example of a copper deficiency. Aneurysms. Here, aorta, aneurysms. So if anybody has connection with him, you need to let him know he's in trouble. It may make you look professorial, but remember Albert Einstein died at 64 from a ruptured aneurysm. He had white hair just like that. Okay, now the last one in this section is my favorite obituary, and then I'll get to these diseases real quick. George Francis, oldest man in America, he died at 112 in December of 2008. This is his daughter reading the newspaper to him because he was illiterate. He lived out in the swamps, Louisiana. Didn't have any electricity coming out there, propane or natural gas. He used wood for fuel, and he lived through 19 U.S. presidents, all of whom the average lifespan is 75. They had at least one university degree, unless they were lower than they had two. And presidents are cared for not by dumb country doctors, but by very, very well-respected medical guys, right? But their average lifespan is 56, exactly half of George's age. And when he died, he's a black man, and when he died at age 112, the reporters asked his daughter, "What did your daddy do to live to be 112?" And she said, "He broke all the rules of healthy eating." Who came up with the rules of healthy eating? Medical doctors who lived to be 56, according to their own study. She went on and she said, he broke all the rules of healthy eating with a diet heavy on dairy, eggs, and lard sandwiches. Pig fat, cholesterol, and saturated fat. I'm going with George, because he eats exactly like all those long-lived top 20 longevity cultures. Once you appreciate that, the game changes. Now, you can't eat fried foods. He didn't eat fried foods. Everything was steamed and boiled. He ate like a Cajun. Okay, now, we got 6 diseases to cover real quick, and then I'm done. So, we're going to look at 6 diseases. Obviously, we're number 1, obesity, so we've got to talk about obesity. I promise you I would teach you and prove to you that it's a simple mineral deficiency disease. Okay? This was predicted following their directions. They can't be right. So I keep listening. If you just do nothing, you'll be better off than you do to listen to them. Just a reminder, that's what you're going to get if you don't change what you're doing. Don't wait for doctors, don't wait for the government, because they ain't changing. According to experts, 70% of our kids under the age of 12 are overweight. 40% of our kids under the age of 12 are obese, meaning 30 pounds or more of their ideal weight. Has nothing to do with too much screen time, has nothing to do with a lack of exercise or eating too much. Has nothing to do with any of those. It's a simple nutritional deficiency disease. Now, this is my favorite charts for adult people who are obese. Up until 1980, we were never above 12% obesity. It was like 10, 12, 11, 8, 9, 12, 8, 9, 12 kind of thing, kind of like a stock market. But in 80, it jumped up to 15. 20 years later, it doubled. 12 years later, 2012, it went up to 42%. This came out in 2006, so I got to move all this over and put a red bar in here to show that I put the bar in there. It's 42% now. So what happened here? Well, this is when everything went wrong. Doctors said, eat more whole grains, give up fat, because carbohydrates in grains only have 4.5 calories per gram, and fats have 9 calories per gram, double the calories. But here's the problem. You eat a quarter of a stick of butter, you won't be hungry all day. You eat a bowl of cereal for breakfast, a half hour later, you're hungry, and you eat again. And then you get hungry again, you eat again. So you're eating 24 times a day when you're eating carbohydrates. Do we fatten cattle on cream and butter and eggs? No, we fatten them on whole grains. Uh-oh. What? We fatten cattle on whole grains? You're told to eat whole grains, you're fat? Oh, well, there you go. This is not difficult. If they were correct, for the past 50 years, the chart should look like that, shouldn't it? But instead, this is what you got. Just like those C. diff bacteria in hospitals. Following the doctor's directions, this is what you get. This is what you get. This is my favorite. Now, I deal a lot with people who weigh 400, 600, 800 pounds. In that range is what I deal with. This woman was not my patient, but she could have been my patient because I deal with a lot with people like her. But she had 2 Guinness World Book of Records when it came to weight. She's the heaviest woman ever weighed. The Guinness World Book of Records would not believe her weight, so they sent their own technicians, and they had a big bed truck come out with their own scales that they had calibrated, and she weighed 1,242 pounds. In a 7-year period between 1987 and 1994, she lost 736 pounds after a gastric bypass and restricting her calories down to 1,000 calories a day, and then she died. Because fat is not the disease. Fat is the symptom of the disease. Just like high blood sugar is not the disease when you have diabetes, it's a symptom of the disease. You can control your blood sugar, you're still going to die from diabetes. You can control your fat, you're still going to die from obesity, even though you've lost some weight, because it's not the fat. It's just a symptom. Stop doing what they tell you. Stop and save yourselves. Okay, here's the first real clue. This is not a rare condition. This happens a million times a day. How many of you ladies, when you're pregnant, had cravings? That's because the embryo is stealing nutrients from her faster than she's taking them in. It's the nutrition deficiencies that make her eat and eat and eat and eat. Okay, and it's choices of what she eats. I mean, Grandma didn't have Ruffles with ridges and Lay's potato chips. You just can't eat one. Grandma only had wood ashes and clay out in the backyard. And so what would she eat? She ate clay out in the backyard and wood ashes when she had those cravings. There's no calories in wood ashes and clay. This gal loved light bulbs. She was a big story in Good Morning America in March of 2011. She loves wood, paper products, cardboard sticks. She eats rocks, dirt. She loves Diet Coke cans, not classic Coke cans, Diet Coke cans. She eats the magnets out of shower curtains. She loves plastic bottles and toys. Maybe that's why they took the toys out of the Happy Meal. I don't know. So my wife and I came up with another book that I told you about, this one, Hell's Kitchen. And the subtitle is The Cause, Prevention, and Cure of Obesity. It also talks about type 2 diabetes and the metabolic syndrome, which are really all the same disease. These are all the same disease, just different sort of stages of it. This is not me. That's Alfred Hitchcock, by the way. Okay, but this book gives you all the facts. Now here it comes. Loyola University, Chicago Medical School. Exercise won't cure obesity. I mean, they were assaulted by everybody. Even Chuck Norris, who sells all those exercise machines on TV. I mean, everybody went after them. But when they reviewed their data, they said, by golly, they're right. Exercise will actually make you heavier if you're not supplementing properly. So 8 months later, when it was proved to the satisfaction of Time magazine, it was a cover article. August 2009. Myth about exercise. It won't make you lose weight. Because if you're sweating, you're thinking about that. I burned 150 calories in the gym today, so I'm going to Starbucks, and I'm going to have an 800-calorie espresso latte, mocha, polka, doka, loca, schmoka. Now, here is another clue. Anybody ever work with horses? Okay, what do you call when a horse chews on the fence? Cribbing, very good. How do you get rid of cribbing other than shooting a horse in the head? You give them minerals. You give them bone meal, you give them trace mineral salt block. Within 3 to 5 days, they stop cribbing. So in 1978, the first clinic I bought was a weight loss clinic. And make a long story short, people would come in every month. They'd renew their prescriptions for thyroid. They'd renew their prescriptions for drugs to suppress their appetite, but they never gained any weight, never lost any weight. They just stayed the same. They were still 50, 100 pounds, 200 pounds overweight. So I said, you know, they're reminding me of a horse that's cribbing. So I began to give them minerals, and they started losing 2 pounds a day. This is what a horse looks like when they're cribbing. The horse isn't even there. This is in a horse and buggy Amish farm barn south of Fort Wayne, Indiana. I was there to see some muscular dystrophy kids, but they were late. The buggies were late, so I went into the barn being my veterinary self, and I saw this, very typical of you can see where the horse is cribbing along that thing too, cribbing on the corners there, reaching over, cribbing over there. Okay, and they're reaching up and cribbing along that beam. So cribbing is munchies, munchies is cribbing, cribbing, munchies, munchies, cribbing. So if you have cravings and you take our 90 for Life program according to body weight, 1 unit per 100 pounds of body weight per month, you use the Rebound instead of 2 liters of Pepsi a day, our Monster, our Gatorade, guess what? You'll lose the weight. You'll start losing a half a pound a day. If you want to go faster, we do have a meal replacer called Slender Effects Weight Management System. Only has 110 calories per meal. I make it with water. I like to throw in a couple of eggs. It gets up to about 250 calories with the eggs. And that helps you because then you're only going to have 2 of those a day plus a salad. You're cool. But I like to throw in what we call ASAP, as slim as possible, as soon as possible. It's drops you put on your tongue, leave it absorb on your tongue. It's you do one of those bottles per month if you need to lose 50 pounds or less. If you need to lose 51 pounds or more, you take 2 bottles a month, put 2 droppers full on your tongue. And I'll give you a couple of examples. This is Jerry. He had a bread belly. He wasn't a drinker. He wasn't a beer belly, but he had a bread belly because his wife, Judy, loved to make bread. He was on our 90 essential nutrients. And but he didn't gain any weight other than his belly. He had a bread belly. And you have to appreciate bread bellies and beer bellies are the same thing. Because bread and beer is made from the same stuff. They're both made from yeast and wheat and barley, rye, and oats. The only difference is one is fermented and the other one is baked. It's the same ingredients. So you can understand they get a bread belly and a beer belly. At any rate, all he added to his system for 45 days was the ASAP. He lost his bread belly in 45 days. Okay? Well, it's 52 pounds. Now, ladies, just to show you that women can lose weight too, there's a little Brandy. And she's 5'2". In this picture, she weighed 158 pounds. And she had had 3 kids, and she started drinking these 2-liter bottles of Pepsi during her first pregnancy. She gained 58 pounds because she weighed 100 pounds when she first got pregnant, and she gained 58 pounds. She got 58 pounds of fat, okay, 1/3 of her body weight. Her husband affectionately called her his chunky monkey. That's where I got the term, and she hated that. So when Rebound came up, she started drinking Rebound, and she lost 20 pounds just drinking Rebound instead of the Pepsi. I mean, within a month, she lost, 21 days, wasn't even a month, she lost 20 pounds. Then we put her on the ASAP, and she lost another 38 pounds. Now she's back down to 100 pounds. Now, I suspect there's going to be more kids in that family. Okay, let's talk about Alzheimer's disease. There's actually 4 different dementias that Americans commonly get. Number 1, the most common one actually is vascular dementia. The same thing that causes a blocking of the arteries in your heart, block the arteries in your brain. It's called vascular dementia. And you don't get enough oxygen and food to your brain. There's nothing wrong with your brain. There's just not enough oxygen and food going in there. Start forgetting things. And it's called vascular dementia. And then there's Korsakoff syndrome, which is a deficiency of a single vitamin. This was discovered in the late 1700s by a Japanese naval surgeon. And so we always prepare for that one. And then there's Wernicke-Korsakoff. It's the same deficiency of that one vitamin plus MS, multiple sclerosis mixed in with it. And then there's Alzheimer's disease. I've seen people with all 4 dementias. Alzheimer's tidal wave is feared. That's because there's 80 million baby boomers coming along. This came out in 2009. Alzheimer's on a relentless upward trajectory. It's kind of like that obesity chart, right? And also that is the Alzheimer's chart. Numbers look particularly grim for baby boomers because they're on egg beaters, egg white omelets, boneless, skinless chicken breasts. And the worst possible thing is they took the statin drugs to lower their cholesterol. Talk about a perfect storm for making Alzheimer's disease. Again, a reminder, 3 lies in the same sentence. Only a doctor could do that. Alzheimer's is the only disease amongst the top 6 killers in the USA for which there's no prevention, cure, or treatment. That's all a lie. Okay, in 1992, the University of California, San Diego, and the Salk Institute came out with this study, and they said, if you take somebody with advanced Alzheimer's disease, you give them a high dose of vitamin E, they'll get better. Now, this isn't some comic book stuff. This is a 10-year study from the Salk Institute and the University of California, San Diego Medical School. So I read this into my audio cassette tape. This is part of my audio cassette tape. I said, vitamin E can ease memory loss in Alzheimer's victims, which means it cannot be genetic. Because there's no genetic disease that you can even help any little bit by giving a vitamin or mineral. So if you can get some clinical improvement by giving them one vitamin that ain't genetic, that's simple stuff. That's 4th grade biology. Every medical association in every state in the United States went to their state attorney generals and had them send me a demand warrant, making me prove what I was saying was true. Otherwise, they're going to take my assets away and put me in jail. I don't know how they can put me in jail in 50 states, but cut me up, I guess. And so we had to send all 50 states a certified copy of that newspaper plus a copy of the CD. But they could say I was just reading that, and so that's a First Amendment thing. So all states except Arizona and Michigan dropped the charges. I had to go do kind of a pretrial hearing and everything in Michigan and Arizona, but the judge threw it out after they saw my presentation and everything. And so they had to pay my legal fees and transportation, and I love that part. Okay. Then in 2010, front cover story, U.S. News World Report, America's Best Nursing Homes Aging Well, obviously marketing to the baby boomers. What science reveals about aging? Is your job killing you? Your first baby boomer's heart battle. But this is why I bought it. 7 habits that lower the risk of Alzheimer's disease. What does that tell you? It ain't genetic. If you can sleep 2 more hours a night, if you can walk around the block 2 more times, if you can eat a banana every week that you weren't doing, you can read a little bit more, read a book every month. Because one of the things I mentioned was read a book every month. Reduce your risk of Alzheimer's disease. It ain't genetic. So right there it says, if it ain't genetic and you get it late in life, that means we can prevent it, and that means we can get rid of it. Amen. Remember, there's 4 different dimensions, so I always like to treat for all 4. Well, 10 years after that first study I showed you with the vitamin E, Johns Hopkins released a study that they did in Cache County, that's C-A-C-H-E, not C-A-S-H, but C-A-C-H-E, Valley area, Utah. And this was the bottom of a small sea or lake thousands and thousands of years ago, and the mountains go all the way around it. This is laser flat. They didn't have to bulldoze it flat because it was just it's bottom of a lake or inland sea, so it was just flat. 200 feet of topsoil in there, and there's no restaurants. I mean, these are very, very religious Mormons that live in there. They're all from a Scottish background. Everybody who moved into that valley came from Scotland. For some reason, they all converted to Mormonism, and they lived and ate, and they're all farmers, and they all ate the food. They wouldn't even go to a restaurant. They're very religious people. They're kind of like the equivalent to the Mormons of the Jewish kosher people are to the Jewish people, okay? The Orthodox Jewish people. And they have a supplemental book to their holy book, okay? This holy book supplement tells them what to eat, what not to eat, just like the kosher Jewish people, Orthodox Jewish people have their stuff they're not supposed to eat and stuff they're supposed to eat. So right, that's what they did here. Well, Johns Hopkins, how many of you heard of Johns Hopkins? Baltimore, Maryland, very famous medical school. They sent a whole team of guys out there. They found 5,000 people in that valley over the age of 65. They divided them in half, and they gave half of them, 2,500 for 10 years, a vitamin supplement. The other half, they gave a dummy pill. Double-blind, randomized study, gold study from one of the top medical schools in America. They published it in 2004. And I'll bet your doctor didn't email you the results. If he didn't, you need to fire him. I guarantee you most of you would be firing your doctors. The first study in 1992 was just vitamin E. I was so excited about that. I said, they need to give them all 90. But instead, they just added vitamin C to it. We don't want to get too aggressive here. So they just added vitamin C. Make a long story short, they said people taking the vitamin C and E over the 10 years were 78% less likely to have a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease than them that didn't. 78% reduction in risk by just adding 2 vitamins to their diet. Now, I guarantee it's more complicated than that because right now as we speak, in fact, I'm going to be meeting with these guys here in a couple of weeks. They've been doing an analysis of the soil for me in that valley because those 2 vitamins are a cofactor for some mineral or minerals in there. Well, right now, I'm giving everybody everything. So I know they're getting it all because they're getting everything, right? But I guarantee there's some minerals in there that are very high. But at any rate, if you take everything, you're going to get everything, right? But just think about it. You can reduce your risk by 78% just with supplementation. Same people, they're homogenous, same cultural background, they're all from Scotland, they're all farmers, they all live in the same valley, they're all the same religion, they all eat the same things, all avoid the same things. I mean, it's like laboratory rats, they're about as homogenous as you can get. Why did medical school go there? Why did they go there? Because you can't, in Baltimore, Maryland, you can't find 2 people who are alike, let alone 5,000. That was pretty smart on their part, wasn't it? So anytime your doctor says it's genetic and there's no way to prevent or cure, you're saying, liar, liar, pants on fire. Okay. Well, 4 years ago, I believe it was, my sister, he's from Greensboro, and she was from Charlotte, and she's one of our associates, one of our distributors, and she called me 4 years ago and said, my brother was diagnosed 8 years before she called me, and said, which is 12 years ago now, and said, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and the doctor says genetic, and I might as well get my reservation in his nursing home right now, so I'll be sure to have a space when the time came, blah, blah, blah. And it's scaring me. And so I took him to neurological clinics. I even went to the medical school here in North Carolina and had the head of the Department of Neurology examine him, and he agreed with the primary care physician that it was Alzheimer's disease. And when she called me 4 years ago, he had lost his memory completely. He was unable to communicate with grunts or barks or blinks or raising a finger or anything. He could not communicate anyway. We couldn't tell if he was, I never saw him. This is over the phone. He would lay on the floor and curl up in a fetal position. So at any rate, what I did for him was say, okay, look, I'm going to treat him for all 4 dimensions because we're kind of late in the game here, right? I said, well, thank you for calling me in early on the case, right? He's in a hospice. He's being fed with a G-tube, so you got to get him off the Ensure because Ensure is made 60% by volume corn oil. Trans fatty acids, the worst possible thing for a normal brain, let alone anybody with any brain disease like Parkinson's disease, MS, Lou Gehrig's disease, or any dementias. No Ensure. So, okay, We need you to get your brother off of Ensure. We have that shake we told you about, the slender effects, but if we just make it with water, he's going to lose weight. And what I want you to do is make it with heavy whipping cream, because I want to rebuild his brain. Make it with heavy whipping cream. I want you to put 4 eggs in it, and I want him to have 2 servings of that a day through his G-tube. You have to whip it up real fine, put it through the G-tube. And then I want him to have 4 more eggs. I'm going to have a total of 12 eggs a day, because I'm calculating how much cholesterol I'm giving him. I rebuild the brain in case he does have Alzheimer's disease, right? Not cooked, but raw. Then I want him to have 2 healthy heart and brain packs per month, but I want him to have 4 half doses a day, split out during the day. Mix it with milk, get it through the G-tube. That's how you're going to get the other 4 eggs in there. Then, in case it's vascular dementia, I want him to take 3 of the Ultimate Daily tablets 3 times a day, grind them up, put them in with that milk and the other stuff, and put them through the G-tube, because it actually dilates arteries and improves blood flow. Then I want him to take 3 of our de-stress capsules 3 times a day. That's 3 bottles a month, because it has that one vitamin that's deficient when you have Korsakoff syndrome and Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. He got 28,000 times the minimum daily requirement of that one. Then I want him to have selenium. I want him to have 9 of our selenium a day, 3 at breakfast, 3 at lunch, 3 at dinner. That's 3 bottles a month in case he has Wernicke-Korsakoffs, because I got rid of the plaque in his brain from the MS. Then I need him to take 12 of our Smart FX a day. These are DHAs and EPAs, which are the raw materials for the brain to make neurotransmitters for memory and cognition, problem solving and memory. I'm going to have 12 of those a day. You have to puncture a little soft gel capsule, squeeze that in through the G-tube. She took a 6-month leave of absence because the technicians and the doctors at the hospice wouldn't do it. She said, I'm going to give him the best shot I can. I'm going to take 6 months off of work and do it. Now, she calls me a week later. I told her to call me every 2 weeks and give me kind of a progress report, because this is under a controlled situation. She personally would do it every day, so I had faith she was going to do it. So she calls me on the radio, and the producer says, Doc, there's this lady screaming about her brother with Alzheimer's disease. Well, it's a week. Maybe something terrible has happened. Put her on. I'm going to quote her exactly, so bear with me. It's very emotional for me, because I want to quote for you. Okay, here we go. So be prepared. And she said to me, quoting her now, he's cured! In 1 week's time, he got dressed and walked out. Did not have Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease would take me 9 to 12 months to reverse, but he had Korsakoff syndrome, which is curable in a week. It's a simple deficiency of a single vitamin. Remember I told you I gave him 28,000 times the minimum daily requirement of that vitamin? Because she gave me little signals to make me think it was more likely Korsakoff syndrome than Alzheimer's disease. So I kind of hedged bet on that one, and it worked. I do this 1,000 times a year now. Very simple. It's called Korsakoff syndrome. The same formula works for Parkinson's disease, MS, and Lou Gehrig's disease. I have many, many wealthy, billionaires that we've reversed their terminal Parkinson's disease in 3 months. They went from being weeks away from death to 3 months later perfectly normal. Okay, Parkinson's disease. Same formula. Okay, arthritis. 95% of arthritis is a simple mineral deficiency disease. Starts out as osteopenia, osteoporosis, osteoarthritis, degenerative arthritis, bone-to-bone arthritis, all the same disease, just different degrees of severity. And, one begets the other as you go along if you're not solve the problem. We have the healthy bone and joint pack for that, 1 per 100 pounds of body weight. And there's 4 ingredients in there, so you have to give a full dose of all the ingredients twice a day for a 200-pound person. But I have over 150 pounds. I like them to have 15 of the glucogel a day, which are the raw materials to support and promote maintenance, repair of cartilage, ligaments, tendons, connective tissue, disc between the vertebrae, bone, matrix, bone itself. It's actually a mix of chondroite and sulfate, glucosamine sulfate, hyaluronic acid, and collagen. It's all in one capsule. This was the main message in the Dead Doctors Don't Lie audio cassette tape back in 1992 when that came out. And, of course, one guy branded me with that audio cassette tape. I never thought in my wildest dreams it would be a big deal, but one guy bought 20 million of them for $1 a piece. His check cleared. It was really weird. He got excited about it. So I thought, man, this must be something. And since then I've sold 180 million, so you need to kind of change your story. It's 180 million now. They're still going out the store at 50,000 a week. Now, 5% of arthritis is rheumatoid arthritis. 5% is rheumatoid arthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis is easily curable in 2 weeks. Rheumatoid arthritis is a simple infection with a bug called mycoplasma. Mycoplasma is the cause of rheumatoid arthritis. It's not autoimmune. It's not a genetic disease. It's not just dumb luck. It's not somebody's put a hex on you. It's just a simple infection. It's curable in 2 weeks with an antibiotic called minocycline, like the little bait fish, minocycline. Take that minocycline, it's gone. You're still going to have some damage, so it might take you 30, 60, 90 days, depending on the degree of damage, the healthy bone and joint pack to regrow everything, and then you're done with it. Now, the doctor will only make $300 in office calls if he cures you with that program. Pharmacists might make a few bucks from the minocycline prescription. You've heard of minocycline. It's a member of the tetracycline family. Sure. If he treats you for 25 years, he makes $750,000. Joint replacements, all the side effects of the drugs you got to treat. And so he has to think for 0.3 of a millisecond. Am I going to make $300 or am I going to make $750,000? Which way do they all go? They're a monopoly, no competition. And insurance pays. If there wasn't insurance, you wouldn't mortgage your house for $750,000. You'd just take more aspirin. Or you'd take grandma's herbs. Or you'd take healthy bone and joint pack. But if insurance pays, well, I've got it managed, and, the doctor said the insurance will pay for my joint replacement, so I'm going that direction. I wouldn't want to spend $3 a day. I need it for my Starbucks coffee. Okay, this is Andy Young's living room. I was kind of 40 pounds heavier there. But he'd canceled his double knee replacement, and we rebuilt his knees in 90 days, and he's been a very good friend of mine ever since. Now, this gal here was in a wheelchair for 10 years before I met her. You recognize some of these folks. This gal here's name is Willie Barrow. Anybody recognize that name, Willie Barrow? Well, Willie Barrow was Dr. King's accountant. She made sure that not a single penny was stolen from the Civil Rights Movement. You never heard of anything going. There was no mischief with the money with the Civil Rights Movement. And she was the one that kept control of everything. Well, I was invited in to be the featured speaker at her 87th birthday party. Okay, it was at the Rainbow Push facility. And 10 days, she's 87 years old, 10 days after she's on her program, she got out of that wheelchair and walked for the first time in 10 years. The coming epidemic of arthritis. Why is there an epidemic? Because there's 80 million baby boomers come along and they followed the doctor's directions. They exercised, they drank plenty of water, and didn't take vitamins and minerals. It's a perfect storm for obesity, diabetes, arthritis, Alzheimer's disease. Oh, yeah, be sure to take the statin drugs. July 2002, the New England Journal of Medicine, Harvard Medical School, a team of orthopedic surgeons from Harvard Medical School did a meta-study on 300,000 people from around the world that had had joint replacement. They said, knee surgery, hip surgery, and shoulder surgery for arthritis is worthless. Give me 90 days. Give us 90 days. If you have anything along the line, osteopenia, osteoporosis, osteoarthritis, degenerative arthritis, bone arthritis, no to the surgery suggestion. Do not do it. Orthopedic surgery, arthroscopic surgery, replacement surgery, do not do it. Give me 90 days first. You can always get the surgery, can't you? But I was personally met a kid who's 7'10". He's a high school kid, 7'10" in Chicago. His father's on the suicide watch as we speak. He had a little funny feeling at the end of his high school days here, on the inside of his right knee, and the father says, look, wait. The coach has an in with the orthopedic surgeon at the Chicago Bulls. If he looks at you, you might get on that team. And the kid said, I don't know, I don't feel good about that. And the father said, let's talk about it. So he goes in there, and the guy says, oh, yeah, we need to do arthroscopic surgery. I'll scrape the cartilage and everything will be fine. He gives the kid MRSA. They put him in a hyperbaric chamber for 2 months and gave him IV antibiotics, and they wound up cutting his leg off. Now, how do you play basketball with 1.5 legs? And the doctor gets a walk. See, I could have fixed that kid. And I can't regrow his leg. If he was a salamander, I could. Some of you know enough about biology. Okay, 4 years later, November 2006, the same group of doctors from Harvard Medical School, orthopedic surgeons, published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, said, surgery unnecessary for sciatica, low back pain, peripheral neuropathies, numbness, burning, pain in the feet, bulging disc, ruptured disc, restless leg syndrome, any of that kind of stuff, all unnecessary. Give me 90 days. We regrow disc. We fix backs all the time. Do not get surgery. You can always get the surgery. That's what Andy Young said. If you can't fix me in 90 days, I'll just go get the surgery. I'm willing to take, I've been suffering with this for 25 years, so what's another couple of months? Okay, type 2 diabetes is a simple mineral deficiency. Why is there going to be a type 2 diabetes epidemic? 80 million baby boomers come along, exercise, drink plenty of water, and don't take vitamins and minerals. It's a simple mineral deficiency disease. And so we have what we call the healthy blood sugar pack. You take one healthy blood sugar pack per 100 pounds of body weight, and take your fasting blood sugar every morning before you medicate yourself, because you can have your blood sugar 300 every morning with medication, with injectable insulin. And if you take our program the night before, it could be 68 the next day. So don't medicate yourself without taking your fasting blood sugar first. I don't get the easy ones. I always get the tough ones. Okay, this is gangrene of the foot. I get him with gangrene of the foot. I get him with gangrene of the legs. This fella here, his name was Buck Steffens, came to me. He was 260 pounds. His blood sugar was 371 with injectable insulin. Doctors told him he was going to die within 3 months. He was so bad with diabetes and all his side effects, complications. that whether they took his feet off or not, he was going to die in 3 months. If they did amputate his feet, he was going to die if they didn't amputate his feet. So he had sold his house, moved up to Eugene, Oregon with his family, so he could spend his last weeks or months with his family. But he came to a convention of ours, and I told him, look, you have nothing to lose. You're a 260-pound guy. I want you on three healthy blood sugar packs, which he did. And in 6 weeks' time, his blood sugar, instead of being 371 with injectable insulin, it was, in fact, then 68. He was an ex-diabetic. We gave him, in addition to that, we gave him 9 of our ultimate daily tablets to get circulation down through that foot. We put in our colloidal silver soaked on cotton balls in between his toes, put a clean cotton sock on there, change that dressing 4 times a day, and in 2 months' time, that's the same foot. Saved both his feet. He's perfectly normal now and ex-diabetic. We can make America diabetes-free in 60 to 90 days, plain and safe. Somebody has to have the will to do it. We have the ability to do it. Give me 90 days first. You just keep taking your antibiotics, keep that gangrene from getting worse, and give me some time, and the odds are we'll be able to fix this. Do not get amputations first without trying something else. If it's not cholesterol that clogs your arteries, what is it? It's the inflammation we already talked about, the inflammation from fried foods, processed meats with nitrates and nitrites, oils, and in many cases gluten, wheat, barley, rye, and oats. Okay, now this fellow here is a pastor, and you may know him. He's the pastor of a very big black church. He's 300 pounds in this picture. When I met him at 1 o'clock in the morning in the lobby of a hotel, he brought a letter of introduction from Martin Luther King III. And Martin, I worked with Martin for a long time. And he was on the heart transplant list. He actually had a bracelet. He says, if this thing starts buzzing, the light's going off just like that thing they give you when you're at a restaurant waiting for a table. He says, if this thing goes off, starts buzzing, the lights start blinking, I'm out of here, don't think I'm rude. But I'm on the heart transplant list. I have congestive heart failure, which is he didn't say this, I'm telling you this. He had congestive heart failure, which is a deficiency of a single vitamin. It's curable in a couple of weeks. Congestive heart failure, the most common cause of heart death in America, is deficiency of a single vitamin. Is curable in a couple of weeks. Selenium is for the other disease he had. Selenium is a mineral, and he had it. It was a hypertrophic cardiomyopathy heart disease, which is a deficiency of a single mineral, selenium. He also had coronary artery disease, which is caused by inflammation, eating that fried chicken after church every Sunday, right? He was a big man, so he ate a lot of it. And he brought a briefcase, kind of this size, and it had 27 prescription drugs in there that he was taking. 3 of those prescription drugs were diuretics, one of which was Lasix, and he couldn't walk from here to that wall without holding onto the chairs in that lobby. He wanted to get a cup of coffee, and he'd stop every 2 or 3 chairs, had so much fluid in his chest and his belly. It tells me immediately that those diuretics weren't working. That's because he wasn't absorbing them. He had a gluten intolerance. He wasn't absorbing the medicine. So you run into people who say, well, yeah, I can take 1,000 aspirins. It doesn't work. I got this terrible headache. It won't work. Well, they got a gluten intolerance. They just can't absorb them. You're not what you eat. You are what you absorb. It's kind of different than the old adage, you are what you eat. It's really, you are what you absorb. So if you can't absorb it, no matter what you're doing for good, it doesn't matter. You have to be able to absorb it. So, at any rate, he had 27 prescription drugs. I said, okay, look, I'm going to treat you for all 4 heart diseases. And I didn't have at that time, this was 6 years ago, I didn't have the ASAP at that time. So I said, look, what I want you to do is take 3 of the healthy heart and brain packs per month. Here we're taking 3 doses a day of 6 different vitamin mineral products, just from that. That's your basic stuff your body needs. I'm going to have you take 9 of my selenium a day, 3 at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's 3 bottles a month. I want you to take 12 of the ultimate daily tablets, 4, 4, and 4. That's 2 bottles a month because they're big bottles because we got to deal with the clogged arteries because you have coronary artery disease. Then I want you to take the selenium was for the cardiomyopathy heart disease. Then for the congestive heart failure, I want you to take what we call the de-stress capsules, which has that one vitamin that's missing when you have the congestive heart failure. I want you to take 12 of those a day because that's your primary disease. That'll be 3 bottles a month. And then you got to give up the fried foods and the processed meats and the nitrates and nitrites and the oils and the gluten, the wheat, barley, rye, and oats. He said, I ain't doing it. That's too complicated, all that stuff and diet change. And his wife is only 100 pounds. Her name is, you're going to do it. She says, you're going to even do it? If you're going to do it, not going to do it, I'm going to give it to you rectally. He says, okay, I'll do it. I've never seen anybody talk to a pastor like that, but she did it and got away with it. Okay. She was so angry with him that he said it was too complicated. So I told, call me every 2 weeks. That's my deal. Call me in 2 weeks. She calls me in a week. that Friday, this was Sunday morning, 1 o'clock, she called me. This is God's truth. This is a pastor. You could check with her. She calls me a week later. She says, he went in this morning. He'd been taking a physical every Friday for 3 years because they told him he has so many complications. It had to be a train wreck in Chicago and 500 dead people for him to get a heart. He's so low on the list. And so he said, we got to do a physical on you every Friday so we have a running knowledge of how you are. So when the heart comes in, we don't want to die in the ice bucket. We're waiting for a lab test. We're just going to slam the heart in you if it comes. He paid him $5,000 cash every Friday for 3 years, $20,000 a month cash. Do you think they weren't using him for an ATM machine? They were giggling all the way to the country club every Friday. Okay? So at any rate, he goes in. They call his wife, say, look, your husband didn't turn on his cell phone. We want you to turn him around, send him back. Do not give him anything. Do not give him, when he comes home, do not give him anything. Turn around, send him back. Give him $5,000. We're going to redo everything. We think we've mixed all his data up with somebody else's. So you know what's happening already, right? So he goes in. He thought he won the lottery because not only was his cardiologist there's another cardiologist, and there's 3 heart transplant surgeons he'd met before. He says, they got my heart. They got my heart. This is it. They did all the tests again. They took him off of all 27 prescription drugs. They took him off the heart transplant list and deemed him cured. And now he is preaching. Before he couldn't preach. He had to sit, on the stage, and then he had an assistant pastor preach for like 5 years because he couldn't preach. He couldn't breathe. He was so full of fluid. Do not let your pediatricians give your kids statin drugs. They're talking about starting at 8 years old. The American Academy of Pediatrics has now released new guidelines. They want the kids to have low-fat milk and start cholesterol testing, and they want them to take statin drugs. Do not let them do it because these kids will not live to be 20 if they start on statin drugs at 8. Now, this is my favorite. This is the last one on cholesterol, and then I can talk about high blood pressure, which is very, very good, and then I'm done. And my favorite cholesterol article, scientific article, New England Journal of Medicine, Harvard Medical School. Dr. Kern was the professor of clinical medicine at Harvard, taught medical students how to be a doctor in the outpatient clinic. Normal cholesterol in an 88-year-old man, Frank, who eats 25 eggs a day. He comes in for his annual physical. There's like a dozen students around Dr. Kern, and he said, look, we are so proud of you. You're 88 years old. All your chemistries are normal. I mean, it's just really interesting. And so we want to reward you. We decided, as soon as we get lots of free samples and everything, we're going to give you a free supply, a 1-year free supply of Viagra. And he stands up. He puts his, picks his belt up, throws his shoulders back, and said, I don't need none of that Viagra stuff. I'm pretty good in that area. They're really, and all the students are giggling, and because I called Dr. Kern and asked him, he said, well, the students were really giggling over that one. And I said, well, what makes you so sure you're in good shape over that? And he says, well, I eat 25 eggs a day. And you can imagine Dr. Kern, a medical doctor from Harvard, somebody eating 25 eggs a day and their cholesterol's in the normal range. So he's got to have a heart attack, right? So they all run in the lab, they rerun all the blood, and sure enough, it's still normal. He comes back out, he's sitting down, he says he's patting his brow with his handkerchief because he's sweating. He says, okay, tell me why I eat 25 eggs a day. So Frank stands up again, pulls his belt up, throws his shoulder back, and says, because it makes me more studly. I are a stud now. Now, what you think about it, cholesterol makes up 95% of testosterone. If you're on an egg-free diet, there ain't nobody home. You're eating 25 eggs a day. Yahoo! Okay, high blood pressure, quickly, is not a genetic disease. It's a simple mineral deficiency. Salt has nothing to do with high blood pressure. If you swell up, you get edema when you use salt. That's because you have low blood protein. Eat more eggs to get your protein up. You won't have the swelling. After years of telling healthy people that too much salt isn't good for them, researchers still don't have solid evidence to back up the claim. Doctors say the stupidest things constantly, like there's no prevention for Alzheimer's disease. Okay? So, I'm a farmer, and so you put a salt block out in a pasture for cows and horses and whatnot. Is there anybody out there telling a horse or a cow they're limited to 1 lick a day? No. I refuse to believe my human patients are dumber than a cow. So I said, just salt your food. Just salt it, go crazy, bathe in it, salt it, put it on your arms, put it in your ears, put salt everywhere, go for salt. He said, God says, go forth and be as the salt of the earth, and he lives forever. Doctors say restrict salt, and they only live to be 56. I'm going with God on the salt thing. So, there's 2 things you need to do, in addition to firing your doctor.